The coin hit the table with a dull, flat click. Not the bright ring you expect from copper. He paused, thumb pressed against the edge, tilted it under the yellow desk lamp. The light slid across the surface and stopped. Something was off. Steel, he muttered, almost to himself. The room smelled faintly of old paper and machine oil. A fan rattled in the corner. On the table, scattered coins, receipts, a chipped mug with cold coffee clinging to the sides. Just another night of sorting through pocket change. Nothing special, until that sound. He flipped it again. No shine. A gray, almost tired surface. A small D under the date, 1943. His fingers slowed. Most people don't notice coins. They move through hands like water. Fast, unnoticed, disposable. Dropped into jars, left on counters. Forgotten in drawers. But here's the uncomfortable question. How many times has real money, serious money, passed through your hands without you realizing it? Not theory, not hype. Actual historical cases. Coins misidentified. Sold for pennies. Later resurfacing at auction tables under white gloves and cold lighting. Fetching sums that don't make sense at first glance. The market doesn't scream when it happens. It whispers. And if you're not paying attention, you miss it completely. So what exactly separates a worthless coin from a six-figure asset? Start with this. Most coins are, in fact, worthless beyond face value. That's the uncomfortable baseline. The system is designed that way. Mass production, standardization, billions of identical units moving through circulation with zero individual significance. But history doesn't behave cleanly. Take 1943. The United States is deep in World War II. Copper is diverted. Ammunition, wiring, military infrastructure. The mint switches to zinc-coated steel for pennies. Overnight, the physical identity of the coin changes. Weight drops, sound dulls, surface turns gray. That decision wasn't about collectors. It was about survival. And yet, within that shift, something fractures. A few copper blanks remain in the machinery. They get struck. Accidentally. Quietly. No announcement. No correction. Just a handful of coins that should not exist entering circulation alongside millions that should. That's where value begins, not in rarity alone, but in deviation from system intent. Fast forward to post-war years. 1949. Coins are produced in volume again, but circulation is brutal. Heavy usage, friction, contact. Coins wear down, get cleaned, polished, altered. Most lose their original surfaces, what collectors later call integrity. The paradox emerges: damage can destroy value, but natural wear can preserve it. And earlier still, 1910. The Lincoln cent is barely a year old. No one is saving them. No plastic holders. No grading services. Just daily use. Coins disappear into the economy, not collections. So here's the real problem. People assume value comes from age or appearance, or even rarity in a simple sense. It doesn't. Value in coin markets is built on a far more rigid structure. Historical context, production anomalies, survival rates, and condition authenticity. Miss one of these variables, and you misprice the asset entirely. And that's exactly what keeps happening. Let's strip away the storytelling for a moment and look at how this actually works in financial, historical terms. Not all rare coins are valuable. Not all valuable coins look rare. There are mechanisms, repeatable ones. 1. Wartime distortions, when policy creates accidental assets. 1943 wasn't unique because of steel pennies. It was unique because of policy stress. Governments under pressure don't optimize, they improvise. The U.S. Mint didn't sit down and design a collectible. It reacted. Copper was redirected, steel replaced it, fast, imperfectly. Machinery wasn't fully cleared. Residual copper blanks remained, they slipped through. That's the key moment. When a system changes faster than it can cleanse itself, errors emerge. And errors, if they survive, become assets. But here's the part people miss. Millions of steel pennies exist. They are not valuable. What carries value is the violation of the rule. The copper 1943 pennies that were never supposed to exist. Even among those, condition matters. Most were handled, scratched, cleaned. A few weren't. Those few, untouched, become financial anomalies. Collectors don't pay for the coin. They pay for the story embedded in metal, policy shift to production error to survival. You see similar patterns elsewhere. 1971, U.S. leaves the gold standard leads to currency identity shifts. 1965, silver removed from circulating coins leads to transitional pieces gain interest. World War II Europe, emergency currencies, occupation coins, inconsistent minting. Every time a monetary system bends under pressure, it leaves behind artifacts. Some are junk, some are signals. The difference is subtle and expensive. 2. The survival filter, most things don't make it. Now shift from creation to survival. Coins are not stored, they are used. Dropped, scraped, cleaned with abrasive cloths, polished by people trying to improve them, thrown into drawers, left in humid air, corroded. Time doesn't just pass, it filters. Out of millions of coins, a large percentage is destroyed or lost. A significant portion is altered, cleaned, damaged. A very small fraction remains original. This is where value compounds. Take the 1949D example. On paper, it's not rare, millions minted. But how many exist today with original surfaces, no aggressive cleaning, honest circulation wear? Very few. And here's the contradiction that confuses most people. A coin can look worse and be worth more. Because what collectors fear isn't wear, it's intervention. A scratch coin that lived naturally is acceptable. A polished coin that looks better is often rejected. Why? Because once altered, the original state is gone, permanently. In financial terms, this is similar to a restored painting versus an untouched one, a modified vintage car versus original factory condition. Restoration introduces uncertainty. Originality preserves information. And markets pay for information. 3. Information asymmetry. Value exists before it's recognized. This is where things become uncomfortable. Because the market for coins is not fully efficient. At any given moment, there are coins in circulation or in drawers, jars, boxes that are misidentified. Not because they are invisible. Because the knowledge required to identify them is unevenly distributed. A cashier doesn't check mint marks under magnification. A collector does. A family might sell a jar of coins by weight. A dealer might sort them one by one. That gap between what something is and what people think it is where value hides. You see it repeatedly in financial history. Mispriced bonds during crises, underestimated land during urban expansion, art sold before attribution is confirmed. The asset doesn't change, the recognition of the asset does. In coin markets, this recognition often happens late. A coin passes through multiple hands. No one stops. No one checks until someone does. And when that happens, the price doesn't adjust gradually. It jumps from face value to hundreds, to thousands, sometimes more. That jump isn't random. It's the moment information becomes aligned with reality. 4. Grading systems, turning subjectivity into market structure. Before the 1980s, coin valuation was unstable. Descriptions like good, fine, very fine were used, but inconsistently. Two dealers could look at the same coin and assign different values. That changed with third-party grading systems, PCGS, NGC. They introduced standardized grading scales, 1 to 70, encapsulation slabs certification. This did something critical. It converted a subjective asset into a semi-standardized financial instrument. Now, a coin graded MS65 is not just a description, it's a market category. Prices can be tracked, compared, indexed, and small differences matter. The jump from MS64 to MS65 can double or triple value. Why? Because higher grades are exponentially rarer. This creates a steep value curve. Lower grades, abundant, low price. Mid grades, moderate supply, rising price. High grades, extremely scarce, explosive pricing. So when someone says this coin is worth 6 figures, the missing piece is often grade. Without it, the statement is meaningless. With it, the market becomes precise, almost clinical. 5. Narrative premium. Markets don't just price objects, they price stories. Finally, something less mechanical but just as real. Narrative. A coin from 1910 is not just copper. It's early 20th century America. Industrial expansion, pre-war economy. A different monetary mindset. A 1943 steel penny is not just steel, it's wartime scarcity, resource reallocation, national urgency. Markets assign value not only based on rarity and condition, but on historical resonance. And narratives scale. A coin tied to a major war, a monetary transition, a famous mint era, carries more weight than a technically rare coin with no story. This is why two coins with similar scarcity can have drastically different prices. One is a statistic, the other is a symbol. And symbols travel further in markets. They attract more buyers, more attention, more competition, which in turn drives price. Put these mechanisms together. Policy creates anomalies. Time filters survivors. Knowledge gaps delay recognition. Grading systems standardize value. Narratives amplify demand. And suddenly the idea of a 1-cent coin worth 6 figures stops sounding absurd. It becomes predictable. Not common, but explainable. And more importantly, repeatable. Step back from US coins for a second. This pattern, error, survival, recognition, amplification, it doesn't belong to America. It repeats, quietly, across countries, across centuries. Take post-World War I Germany, hyperinflation. Currency collapses so fast that paper money becomes disposable. People burn banknotes for heat, trillions printed, worthless. But within that chaos, specific notes, limited issues, printing anomalies, later become collectible assets. Not because they held value then, because they captured the breakdown of a system. Or look at Soviet-era coinage. Massive production, central control, uniformity enforced. Yet small mint variations, tiny differences in dies, alignment, composition, now command premiums in niche markets. Again, not designed to be rare, made under pressure, imperfectly. Even in modern times, Euro introduction, early 2000s, countries rushed minting, transitional designs, limited early runs from smaller nations, Monaco, Vatican, San Marino, suddenly become disproportionately valuable. Same structure, different geography. What about outside currency entirely? Vintage watches, misprints and stamps, early tech hardware, first-generation iPhones sealed in box, all follow a similar arc. Produced in bulk, ignored at birth, filtered by time, rediscovered under new context. The market doesn't reward age alone. It rewards survival under conditions that should have erased the object. And here's the uncomfortable consistency. The people holding these items at the beginning rarely know what they have. The people who recognize them later pay the price. So whether it's a wheat penny, a Weimar banknote, or a discontinued device, the rule doesn't change. Value hides where systems failed, and time didn't finish the job. Strip away the coin, focus on the system. What you're really looking at is not a hobby. It's a model of how hidden value forms and survives. First principle, most things are noise. The majority of coins, assets, opportunities, worth nothing beyond surface value. Except that, it keeps you from chasing illusions. Second, value lives in deviations, not in what's common, but in what shouldn't exist or shouldn't have survived. Errors, transitions, overlooked edges of systems under stress. But here's where people get it wrong. They jump straight to find the rare thing. That's backwards. You don't hunt randomly, you build filters. Understand context, why something was produced. Identify anomalies, what breaks the rule. Evaluate survival, what remains untouched. Verify authenticity, what hasn't been altered. Without that structure, you're guessing. Third, liquidity matters more than rarity. A rare object with no active market is not an asset. It's a liability. Coin markets work because there are buyers, auction houses, grading systems. Translate that broadly. Always ask, who buys this and how easily can it be sold? Fourth, preservation beats improvement. This shows up everywhere: coins, art, real estate, even financial instruments. Intervention often destroys value. Stability preserves optionality. And finally, information is uneven and always will be. You don't need to know everything. You need to know slightly more than the average participant in a specific domain. That edge, small, quiet, consistent, is where disproportionate outcomes come from. Not luck, not hype. Structure, that dull click on the table, the one that didn't sound quite right, that's where this always begins. Not with certainty, not with headlines. Just a small inconsistency most people ignore. A coin, an object, an asset moving quietly through hands that don't stop to look. And that's the pattern again. Systems produce uniformity. Pressure creates mistakes. Time erases most of them. A few survive. Fewer are recognized. The rest spent, lost, forgotten. So the question isn't whether hidden value exists. It does. The real question is simpler and harder. When it passes through your hand, will you notice? Or will it make that same dull sound and disappear again?